Level 50, and this is the perfect build for you to do so as well. It's tailored to players who don't have hours per day to play Diablo, but are still looking to enjoy the new Season of Blood in Diablo 4. It requires no legendary items, instead using 3 easily farmed essences from dungeons, and it's capable of soloing the capstone to enter World Tier 3 towards the end of the leveling process. So, why are these things important? Well, if you have limited time, then you don't want to spend all your materials and gold on your leveling build, just to replace things when you change into an endgame version. Perhaps you're casual and don't have an enormous friends list or active clan to carry you through the capstone at your first request. The build will swap one skill shortly after level 25, so feel free to use the timestamps to jump around as needed based on your current progress. And at the end of the video, we'll cover where the first 25 Paragon points should go once you reach level 50. The build has a strong focus on clearing high density groups of mobs, which is currently the fastest method to level in game, furthering the benefits of using this over other options if you're short on time. We'll start with Stormstrike, and this is our primary or generator ability for our resource Spirit. Now, we don't so much care about the damage our weapon does for leveling. Good affixes and attack speed is the way to go. We want to generate more Spirit faster so that we can use our core skill Pulverize more often. This ability does a large damage, consistently overpowers for even more damage, and reduces the damage enemies deal, and the best part, it's a pretty large AoE. Starting out, our first 6 points will go into the tree like so. And later on, we'll come back for Fierce Stormstrike, which will add vulnerability, and we'll max out Pulverize, but we can pick up a lot of utility before then. Blood Howl, all the way down to Innate Blood Howl, will give us a short cooldown capable of both healing and generating Spirit for us, and this is huge while leveling, since Spirit is the limiting factor in how often we can spam Pulverize. Following that, grab Fierce Stormstrike and another Pulverize rank, which will open up the next tier for Poison Creeper. This ability is insane. Even at low levels, it can basically wipe the screen while you continue onward to kill more mobs, making your efficiency just go way up. Take this down to Ferocious Poison Creeper, and we'll cap the skill later on as well. 3 points in Clarity is fantastic for leveling. You'll get 6 Spirit when you shift to Stormstrike, or use Poison Creeper, which adds up to a lot of bonus Spirit early on. This is something that can be dropped later if you choose, but it's not going to hurt you on your way up to level 50. This is a great point to mention. The fastest method to level is through the domain tunnels. Clear the first area, exit, reset, and repeat. It's in no way mandatory, but it's worth a mention in an early leveling guide. That being said, you'll inevitably want to go touch some grass, because you'll want to knock out some side quests for materials that'll help level your healing potion along the way. Going down to Savage Trample, and that's for the additional energy that it grants, but for the ability itself, it also makes you unstoppable, which is basically mandatory for melee, and can deal some surprisingly large damage, especially if you push them into terrain. Feel free to use this as mobility as you move around the map as well. Cap out Pulverize, and then cap out Poison Creeper. Even though our next ability, Grizzly Rage, is unlocked, you'll get more benefit from Poison Creeper at this time, but once that's capped, we'll grab Supreme Grizzly Rage, which gets a lot better as we start adding essences into the build. And it's at this point I recommend starting to pick up a few of these essences from dungeons, specifically Aspect of the Air Sign Horror, Ballistic Aspect, and Aspect of Retaliation. With just these 3, you'll be more than capable of pushing up to 50 on this build. Predatory Instinct for all 3 points, 1 point in Quick Shift for additional damage, and Ursine Strength will round out the build at level 25. You'll be plenty tanky, have incredible clear speed, and reliable mobility at this point. I'll also leave a link in the description where you can see everything we've covered in this guide so far, along with levels 26 through 50 for anybody who might be further along in the game. Once you have the essences collected and imprinted, you can start making use of Grizzly Rage as well, since they synergize with the fortitude provided from the skill. The gameplay overall is simple, as I mentioned in the intro. Although you can technically have a rotation of Pulverize, Stormstrike, Stormstrike, Pulverize, you're often better using a priority system. Poison Creeper is your largest source of damage. Use that whenever it's up. Pulverize is your next choice. If you're low on Spirit and missing health, Blood Howl. If not, Stormstrike, using Trample to break free of CC and for mobility, and Grizzly Rage for any situation you want the damage reduction as well as damage output. Now I know that priority system might sound overwhelming, especially when the skills are all rattled off like I just did, but don't worry, I promise you'll pick it up really quickly because the abilities all do different things. Heal, poison, charge, tank, generate, spend. See, it's not so bad when you put it that way. Again, this build is amazing for anyone who wants to be able to just pick up the game and play when you have a chance and not worry about the insane amount of hours required to make some of the other builds viable. Keep in mind, you're not forced to move up world tiers, so you can do so whenever you feel comfortable, but your progress will begin to slow if you don't do so eventually. Our preparation is of course true to the nature of this build. We're simply going to swap one skill and we're ready. This means dropping the 3 points from Blood Howl and moving them into preserving Earthen Bulwark. The effective health gain from this is greater than the healing Blood Howl provides. However, we need to time this effectively to get some benefit from it. Having a shield that absorbs 0 damage is useless, so make sure to cast this prior to taking damage, but not so early that you take none. The other trade-off here is that instead of gaining Spirit on use, we gain Fortify, which is actually a damage modifier for us given our essences, so our overall damage is actually going to go up at this point. Earthen Bulwark also provides Unstoppable, meaning we now have 3 sources to do so, making this build both viable for softcore and hardcore. So why weren't we using this all along? Well, Blood Howl has a lower cooldown, and it reduces further upon kills once talented, giving us more consistent spirit gains. But at this point, we need to focus more on surviving, and our method of dealing damage becomes more of using cooldowns to stay alive while kiting, and using spirit to burst when possible. Ideally, you never stop moving with this build. Speaking of spirit and burst, at this point place a point into Heart of the Wild. This will unlock Wild Impulses, which will place 3 points. From there, max Iron Fur and Crushing Earth. At this point, Aspect of Quicksand, although not required, it becomes very beneficial, and worth the time to grab it if you're looking for a change of scenery. Place a single point in Neurotoxin, and this is the reason the Aspect isn't fully required, but again recommended. Another single point in Safeguard, just to gain the ability to proc it, then place 3 points in Stoneguard and in Venom. Dropping Clarity at this point to max Defiance, then a final 1 point wonder in Circle of Life, and 3 points in Resonance will round out the build. Again, all this is available through the link in the description. Here's the recommended path for the first 25 Paragon points, and you might have these immediately when you ding 50. Now, if you already have another build in mind that you're transitioning into, you can of course follow that route instead. This is just intended in case you're not sure yet, and still want to grind some or see what you get for drops and adjust later. The glyph socket will be unlocked, and just use whatever you're fortunate enough to get that benefits the build at this point. It's too difficult to ensure you'll have the perfect one to mention in this guide. Don't forget to level up strong pieces of equipment that you find along the way. And although I mentioned your weapon damage didn't matter for early leveling, it's definitely becoming a factor now, so keep that in mind when making choices from here forward. I hope you enjoyed the guide, and best of luck this season.